Hello everyone. In this video we are going to talk about ecology. This is the first video of the series related to Unit 4, and this is Unit 4.1, Species and Communities. The essential idea is that the continued survival of living organisms, including humans, depends on sustainable communities. So it is very important that we know what is community and what makes communities to be sustainable. Understandings and the skills that you will need to learn by the end of this unit. You can pause the video and read this page, and I'm going to get back here later after finishing the unit. The summary for what we are going to learn at this stage is like the definition of the species, and then what is the member of the species, and what do we call as some organism as a species, what is the definition, how do we say that this is the species, and then we have some different categorizations or classifications in terms of the way that the animals are eating, if they are consumers, which we call them heterotroph, what type of heterotroph they are, if they are a type of heterotroph which are feeding on organisms, or they are a type of heterotroph that they obtain the organic nutrients from detritus or by internal digestion. So the mode of the nutrition is making the heterotrophs with different classifications. So these are the things we are going to learn about, and also the definitions of saprotrophs, which is another type of heterotrophs. And we will learn about the community, how the communities are formed by populations, and how the community can form ecosystems. So these are things, and also the autotrophs, which is the opposite definition of heterotroph, which means that they are producing food by themselves, but heterotrophs, they are using their food from autotrophs, and how the inorganic nutrients will be maintained by the nutrient cycling, and the ecosystem definitions. And there are two main parts of this unit. We will focus, you need to learn according to the applications and skills. One is you are going to make a mesocosm. A mesocosm is a sealed area, or is a sealed container which doesn't allow the energy comes except the light energy. The other materials and chemicals will be kept inside, and you will see how it makes a balanced situation. And there are some examples, and you are going to do it as a practical of your IB curriculum, making a mesocosm. And then there will be some t-test, which some testing according to data that you can get from an example. That there would be chi-square test, and you will learn what is a chi-square and when do we use chi-square, as well as the t-test as well. But first of all, you will learn the definition and the concept, with the examples how to do the chi-square test. This is a great way to learn and understand and remember these definitions. For example, what is a species? Species is a group of organisms that can potentially interbreed and produce fertile offspring. So they need to be able to interbreed, and also they need to after interbreeding, they need to produce fertile offspring. So not only interbreeding, but also fertile offspring. This is the definition for a species. And the order of the order of these definitions from a smaller to bigger one can be remembered by the memorizing the word species, in which S can represent a species, and the next P representing population. What is population? A group of organisms of the same species that live in a particular area at the same time. So once we are talking about once we are talking about population, we are emphasizing of the same species in the population. So we cannot say the population of bee and like the other insect. That would become two populations. So each population should have same species which they are living in a particular area at the same time. The next, just forget about this E, and the next would be C, which shows community. Community is a group of populations living and interacting in a particular area. So once it's become a community, then it is possible that we have more than one population in the community. And you can see that the order is becoming bigger and bigger from S, P as a species, population, and community. And finally, we end up with the ecosystem as ES or E, which is a community and its abiotic environment. Community and abiotic environment is called ecosystem. What is abiotic environment? The non-living factors is called abiotic, which is non-living. If there is a community with non-living factors or abiotic environment, this abiotic environment could be soil, light, and all the non-living factors. And when we put all of them together with a community, in which the community includes a lot of populations, then that makes an ecosystem. Let's have a look at each definition that we learned. What is a species? A species was a group of organisms that can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. So if for any reason the species coming from the closely related it is not possible, or in some rare situations or in some rare cases, if there are very rare closely related species can do interbreed and produce offspring, but the offspring will be a kind of hybrids because it cannot be fertile or it will be sterile. So the example for this is mule. Mules are they interbreed between donkey and horse, and because they are close related animals, they can do interbreed, but the offspring will not fertile. So that's why we don't call it as a separate species. A species should be able to produce, and since there is no production and it is sterile, we don't call it a separate species. Population is a group of organisms of the same species, but they are living, same species, but they are living, they are living in the same area at the same time. Okay, so same area at the same time. This means that if there are some organisms with the same species which makes the population, but they are geographically separated or temporarily are not likely to breed together, in this case, they may create separate populations. And that's how the different species have been evolved during millions of years. A separation of the population will will end up with a new species. But anyway, as long as they are not at the same time and at the same area, they will not be considered as the same population. That would be the different population. However, that different population may not end up with the new species, but will be definitely a separate population, and they may have different characteristics according to adjusting or adaptability with the new environment. Community is a group of populations that are living and interacting together in the same area. So if we have more than one population, then we will have a community. As you can see here, we have different types of animals, zebra, elephant, and these are the different types of animals living at the same area. So that's why we call them community. All organisms are dependent on interactions with members of other species for survival. For example, a lion depends on the availability of prey species such as zebra and antelope. If there is no zebra and antelope, then lion cannot hunt and cannot survive. So community are survivable because of the interaction between the species and the populations within the community. Communities also include plants and microbes, and hence often involve thousands of species. Okay, let's answer the question, multiple choice question. In a pond, 2 species of frogs feed on a variety of insect species, which in turn all feed on algae that live in the water. What constitutes a population in this ecosystem? Pause the video and answer the question. Here we go, all of the frogs are one species. Next question, what is a community? That's right, population of different species living and interacting in the same area. Don't forget to pause the video when you are answering this question. Which of the following statements about the species is false? Correct. Members of a species that have lived in separate populations cannot reproduce to form fertile offspring. What is the autotroph? All autotrophs convert carbon dioxide from the atmosphere or dissolved in water into organic compounds. Hopefully we have already finished the photosynthesis part, and you know what does that mean, how the molecular level of the photosynthesis, which part and what kind of organelles can do the photosynthesis by getting the energy from the light and then converting fixation of carbon dioxide and then converting or producing the sugar at the end and releasing the oxygen as a byproduct. All organisms require organic molecules, such as amino acids, to carry out the functions of life, for example, metabolism, growth, and reproduction. Okay, so we have two separate classification in terms of this definition. Either they can produce or synthesize by themselves, which are called autotrophs. They are synthesizing their own organic molecules and are therefore known as producer. But since other organisms need to have these organic molecules because of the functions of life, we call them heterotroph. Heterotroph means they are obtaining their organic molecules from other organisms. There are some examples related to these autotroph and heterotroph samples. What are these examples? A few plants and algae use combination of different modes of nutrition. What are these combinations? So we call them like mixotrophs because they are using a combination of this type of autotrophism or heterotrophism. What does that mean? There is a species which is called Euglena. Euglena is a genus of algae here, and it can do the photosynthesis. You can see that it's green, so it has the ability to produce the sugar by itself. So it does the photosynthesis, so we call it autotrophs in sufficient light. But it can also ingest some particles of food by phagocytosis, which is then, after doing phagocytosis, then it digests the food. In that case, it will be heterotroph. So Euglena is an example of a mixotroph. That means that it can do autotroph by production, by using the light for production of the glucose, and heterotroph by phagocytosis. Another example is this cute and very famous plant. I think there has been a movie many years ago. When I was a child, I watched that movie. There was this plant. It was a giant plant that could eat human beings. Anyway, that was a movie, but this plant is called Venus flytrap, Dionaea massipula. Is found in subtropical wetland and lignose plants. Photosynthesize, so it is autotroph, it can do the photosynthesis, but at the same time it can traps and digest insects and spiders. In that case, it is called a heterotroph. And this is for compensation for the nutrient poor soil of the wetland.